Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang terhormat Brother Eka Kristanto, Ketua dari IMSA, Brother Hakim Lahir, Ketua dari MISG, Puan Mama Berhayati Daud, Pak Saiful yang saya hormati, sesepuh masyarakat Indonesia di Las Vegas. Saya melihat Ustadz Samsi, Ustadz Joban, Ustadz Hasanuddin bin Yusuf, Ustadz, sahabat saya juga Ustadz Habibur Rahman. Jadi saya ada satu selebriti dari Indonesia yang ada di dan bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu sekalian yang saya hormati. There's been a lot of languages tonight, but I want to ask your permission to speak in English, first because I've prepared my speech in English, and secondly because I remember a conversation I had with my good friend Khairi in Kuala Lumpur several years ago. Khairi said to me, and he's a really good friend of mine, he said, "Dino, how come your Indonesian talk funny?" And I said, "It's a good thing you say that, Khairi, because we think you Malaysians talk funny." So let me just play it safe tonight by speaking in English. And Safrin, also forgot to mention Safrin, thank you for organizing this and with all the others. The MC said to me that I was named yesterday as one of the 500 most influential Muslims. There's actually a story about that. My staff came to me and said, "Ambassador, I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want first?" Good news. Good news is you've been named as one of the world's 500 most influential Muslims. Oh, that's nice. What's the bad news? You're number 500. To congratulate this meeting because this is actually the first major Indonesian-Malaysian meeting or gathering after the painful football match between Malaysian national team and our national team at the Southeast Asia Games. I wasn't speaking with any Malaysian for several weeks after that, but now that's over. When I told my government that I was going to speak at the joint Muktamar IMSA MISG, my Director General said, "Alhamdulillah." And then when I said I was speaking in Las Vegas, he said, "Astaghfirullah." It's not the hard part, because the hard part is actually telling my wife about this. You know, I said to my wife, I remember this conversation very well. "Sayang, I want to tell you something." And she knows when I say sayang, that means something's up. So I said, "Sayang, I'm going to speak at the Muktamar, IMSA, MISG. Oh, that's very nice. Where is it?" "It's in the West Coast." That's nice. Where is it? "It's about 4 hours from Los Angeles." It's nice. Where is it? "It's in the state of Nevada." It's nice. Where is it? "It's in the Renaissance Hotel." That's nice. Where is it? I'm becoming very impatient. It's in, oh, it's very good. Silence, and then she said, "I'm coming with you." Alright, let's get serious now. Look, as a Muslim, I hear a lot about my fellow Muslims talking about the glory of Islam centuries ago, particularly in the 13th century. I kept hearing that at the height of Islamic civilization, we had the greatest civilization on earth. Greater than Europe, which was still in the Middle Ages, greater than the Chinese civilization, the Indian civilization, and all the others. It's all true. But you cannot bring back time. You can, however, create the future. I feel sometimes we reminisce too much about what glory we had in the past, that we became complacent, and often our forefathers and mothers missed the boat and got left behind. We missed the Industrial Revolution, we missed the military revolution, we missed the information revolution, and others. It's important for us to recognize that when we talk about glory of Islam, it should not just be about something that has happened in the past. It's not something that is just nostalgic, but something that is present and reflects our hopes for the future. There's no sense feeling glorious in the past if you feel desperation in your heart and hopeless about your life today and our future. So, if you want to seize our time today and seize our tomorrow, we can learn from the first Muslims and also from the 13th century Muslims, which brought the height of Islamic glory, about the ethos of success. What is it? It is that Muslims need to always think ahead of our time. We need to embrace change at all times, and we can engage the world with courage and passion. I believe that in 14 centuries of Islamic history, today ranks as one of the better times to be a Muslim. Muslims today, there are more middle classes than ever. Muslims today have more knowledge and wealth than ever. We have the social media tools at our disposals, Facebook, Twitter, and all the others. And we are more in control of our destiny and more part of the international system than had ever been before. And in this changing sea change of Islamic communities worldwide, Indonesian and Malaysian Muslims have much to be proud about. We effortlessly and freely embrace democracy. We are very comfortable with modernity. We are defined, both Indonesia and Malaysia, not by our problems, but by our success, by our potentials, by our achievements, and by our prospects. And Indonesians and Malaysian Muslims are confident. This is a very important trait for us. And as a reflection of that confidence, we can say also that the gravity of the Islamic world spiritually will always be in Mecca. Always be. But in any other sense, it need not be in the Arab world. It need not be in the Middle East. It can be in Indonesia and Malaysia. Spiritually, we will always be Mecca. But diplomatically, politically, economically, socially, and culturally, Indonesia and Malaysia can be models of growth for other Islamic societies as we are becoming. Let's give us a big round of applause. But Muslims around the world are still a long way from being where we need to be. Today, it is said that 2 out of 3 Muslim countries are in conflict or face a significant threat of conflict. This is a contrast where only 1 out of 4 non-Muslim countries face similar challenges. And a lot of our fellow Muslims are still trapped in poverty, ignorance, and extremism. And a good number are still falling behind Millennium Development Goals. Out of 57 Muslim populated countries, for example, 25 classified as low-income countries, 18 as lower middle income, and only 14 as upper middle income or high income countries. And even though 1 out of every 4 people in the world are Muslims, their economies together constitute only 1/10 of the world economy. 1 in 4 people in Muslim countries are said to live in extreme poverty, and almost 300 million Muslims aged 15 and above are said to be illiterate. And there are not too many Muslims now that are living in democracy. And we still don't know where Arab Spring countries will end up, because there's never a sure shot guarantee of success in any countries experiencing democratic transition. Not for Indonesia, not for Malaysia, and we just been lucky in that direction. So, against that background, we need to work harder. We need to claim our space in the brave new world of the 21st century. And it is important for us, as much as we acknowledge that we are one of the best Muslims, it is important to acknowledge that we are facing a world of challenge and opportunity. It is a world of challenge because Islamophobia is growing. Right? We see rising trends of tolerance, multiculturalism everywhere, but at the same time, Islamophobia is rising. In many of these places, especially in the developed world, the politics of identity is becoming restless, especially in Europe, where you will see economic nervousness. And when people are becoming economically insecure, the politics of identity, including perception towards Muslim societies, become anxious. Right? And that is the world that we are facing, not just in Europe and much of the Western world, but also worldwide. And at the same time, it is a world full of opportunity. You see the size of the world GDP, you see the size of the world trade, the number of companies from Asia, from the Middle East, from the emerging world, and you see the number of entrepreneurs and middle class and people with graduate degrees and university degrees. It's all proliferating phenomenally. And all this signifies that we live indeed in a time of change and opportunity, even though it remains uncertain where they will go. So let me say a number of thoughts on how Muslims, especially Indonesian and Malaysian Muslims, should respond to that kind of work. First, we have to be part of global change and renewal. There's an incredible power shift that is happening now in the international system, both between countries, in societies, in politics, and also at the level of individuals. You cannot fight and reverse this trend. Some of the countries in the Middle East tried, they did not succeed. Rather than resist it, you have to be part of it. Be part of the global change and renewal that is happening. And now we see an exciting phenomenon of the rise of emerging economies, including Indonesia and Malaysia. And this is a trend that, at least for the short term, will continue. Muslims, especially Muslim societies and Muslim economies, must be part of this global change and renewal. Secondly, embrace entrepreneurship and the culture of success. Now this is very important because in Indonesia, there's a feeling among a large number of Muslims since we became independent, and especially before we became independent in 1945, that entrepreneurship is really for the Chinese Indonesians. You know, they're just so good at it. And they've just been doing it for generations, for centuries. It's their thing, right? And meanwhile, millions of Muslims in Indonesia languish in self-pity, in fatalism, in believing that success belongs not to them, but to others. And their language in negative energy, in blaming others, blaming the world, and they're stuck in their cocoon. Now this has changed in recent generations, but we have to maintain the momentum. I love to see, I love to see the rise of Muslim entrepreneurs throughout Indonesia, just the way I have seen it grow in Malaysia. And it's going stronger and stronger. And every Muslim father and mother must instill that mindset in their children that you have to have that entrepreneurial skill and the culture of success and the ability to compete in the world. Because, to be honest, this is what the Koreans are doing. Korean mothers are doing to their children, the Chinese mothers, the Vietnamese, and all the others. And we have to prepare our children for that and prepare them with the right mental attitude. In the US, for example, there was a recent poll taken by PEW that said that 82% of American Muslims, 82%, are satisfied with their lives. That's very high numbers. And they said, it found that more Muslims are happy with national conditions in the US than the general public in the US. It's about 52% are happy with national conditions in the US, then about 23% for the general public. And they found also that 80% of Muslims believe, American Muslims, believe that hard work is the secret of success, and that they count as their closest friends, not just Muslims, but also non-Muslims, which means they are well assimilated into their society. So this brings to our third formula, which is make openness and innovation part of our DNA as Muslims. And this is really not a secret, because if you ask what made 13th century Muslims the best civilizations on earth, it is because they sought knowledge and ilmu from wherever they could find it. From China, from India, from wherever they could find it, they grabbed it, and they were open to all kinds of ideas and knowledge and science and innovation, and it became part of their DNA, which made them very successful. This is our secret of success as well. And part of that, we need to start reducing our tendency towards conspiracy theories. You know, conspiracy theories is very rife in the Arab world, right? I don't know why, but it's just part of their DNA. In Latin America also, you know, you always hear conspiracy theories. In Southeast Asia, it's less so, but it's persistent at certain levels. And I tell you that the more you believe in conspiracy theories, the more you become afraid, the more you become suspicious, and the more you miss opportunities. So my advice has always been to fellow diplomats, think rationally, make sound judgments, but spare the conspiracy theories unless you have really good evidence to back them up. And this leads to the next element, which is Muslims must always be driven by opportunity and not fear or bitterness. Sometimes I hear our language, our rhetorics, our khutbah, there's too much bitterness in it. And we should have more opportunity, language, implanted in the jargons of our discourse. And also embrace modernity and moderation passionately. We also can erase the fault lines that divide the West and the Islamic world. I think it's a good thing that we have a G20 now, where for the first time, you have an economic grouping which includes 3 large Muslim majority states, which is Indonesia, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. In contrast with the G8, which was decided only by America, Japan, and Europe. So we've moved on from a G7 or G8 world to a G20 world, where the Muslim majority economies are part of that. And that helps to erase the fault line between Islam and the West in the international system. I hope EU will accept Turkey at some point to join and its members. And I hope also the Arab-Israeli conflict will find resolution, even though I think it's realistic to presume that in the next 2 years there won't be much movement in the negotiations of the Arab-Israeli conflict. But if we do all these things and we achieve all these things, I think we can help erase the fault line, the geopolitical and geoeconomic fault line between the West and the Islamic world. But I think one of the most important qualities that Muslims can have is a spirit of pioneerism. Right? What is pioneerism? It is a mindset that says, I can break down new doors and new grounds. I can make new path for the future. Now, it's not always easy because you always find resistance when you want to think differently, especially for the future. You always have to find resistance. But the pioneers are those who are special because they have courage. I want to tell you a story about what some of our Muslims, including Samsi Ali, have done with the Jewish community in America. There's a group called Islamic Society of North America, and they have a meeting every year. And at some point, they said, what if we invite a leader from the Jewish congregation to speak at our convention? And then it wasn't very easy, but when they invited the Jewish rabbi said, that's too much risk. I don't know if we can do that. It's never been done before, and I don't know if I speak at your convention, how will the Muslims react? But the leader of Islam said, come anyways, let's take the risk. Let's take this opportunity. And the Jewish rabbi said, okay, let's do this. Jewish rabbi spoke, and it was received with a big applause and very warm welcome by the members of Islam. In the following year, the leader of Islam was invited by the Jewish Congress, Jewish Convention to speak. And again, the leader of Islam said, would I be welcome? And then he took that risk, and when he spoke again, he was warmly welcomed by the Jewish Convention. And as part of that process, now there's a twinning program between mosques and synagogues in New York, whereby Jewish rabbi would go and speak at a mosque, and Islamic ustad would go and speak at a synagogue. And I think Imam Samsi Ali is part of that, working with Rabbi Schneider. What am I trying to say? These are things that were not done before. But somebody took the risk. Somebody said, let's pioneer this. Let's make a new path and chart a new course and break new grounds. And they did it with courage, and good things happen as a result of that. I think this is the time where more Muslims are challenged to adopt the spirit of pioneerism. One of the areas, for example, is democracy. Democracy. In the recent speech that I did on Islam and democracy, I sent an email to Pak Nazaruddin Umar, our prominent Ustad, and I asked him, what are the principles in Islam that can be used to promote the notion that Islam and democracy are compatible and go hand in hand? And he came up with a lot of things, but he also told me actually, intellectually and academically, there's not much work on this. Because for so many centuries, Islam and democratic development did not meet somewhere. They just went in parallel without really touching and converging. Right? And he acknowledged, this great Ustad of Indonesia, Nazaruddin Umar, that there's a lot of work that can be done to study the verses of Al-Quran and to connect them with the promotion of democracy, something that has not been done with great energy before. Again, this is another area of pioneering work. And there's also a great work in addressing global issues, whether it's poverty, climate change, terrorism, natural disasters, and others. But in order to secure your place, our place in the 21st century, which I would call the age of possibility, Muslims, especially Indonesian and Malaysian Muslims, must have the right mindset. You must be open, you must be innovative, and you must think ahead of our time. The same way every generation of Muslims before have tried to do so. This is not going to be easy. This is not going to be easy. It reminds you to think always outside the box. One of the ways, for example, we need to start thinking a bit differently about the concept of kafir. Spiritually, we recognize the term kafir and we go by it. But if I were to regard everybody I meet who's non-Muslim as kafir, I would not be successful in what I do, both in my career, in my society, in my community, and in life. So you need to be a bit, we need to think about these concepts and contextualize it to the environment that we are living today. And in conclusion, I would like to say, or summarize the recipe for progress for Muslims. Hold on to our faith as Muslims and Muslimat, strengthen our iman, do more amal and ibadah, but be forward-looking, think ahead of our time, don't be afraid of change, be opportunity-driven, and engage your community and the world with passion and courage. And if you do all this, I'm sure that we will all be successful Muslims for this life and in akhirat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.